prefer traditional because bakutshela yonke into ofuna ukuyazi, bayakuconsulta bakutshela ukuthi impilo yakho ime kanjani.
I normally prefer to go see modern doctors. The reason being, I personally believe in science. I think everything is literally based on scientific researches and stuff.
Kakhulu mina ngiprefer umuthi yesintu ukuya kulabantu bezinyanga ngoba thina sikhuliswe ngesintu.
Ngithanda ukubabona bobabili.
What are the factors that influence people to patronize traditional and modern medicine? What are the challenges of traditional medicine? And why do some patients prefer traditional medicine? Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Dr. Musam Tombeni, and signing with us today is Samora Mbuyaze and the feeder interpreter, Itsulufelo Sikhao. On Vital Science, we'll focus on traditional medicine versus modern medicine. Coming up on the program, we'll listen to insert produced by Nompilo Kwala as she spoke to traditional healers about the work that they do in their communities as she visited a traditional pharmacy. And of course, we'll want to find out more about these pharmacies. We'll speak to a traditional healer and pastor about the role of traditional and modern medicine. We'll speak to a family physician about modern and traditional medicine. And lastly, we'll speak to the director of traditional medicine at the National Department of Health about the role of traditional healers. Remember that you can be part of the show by asking the guests that we have on any question that you have on your mind on what we're discussing today. The number to call is 011-714-0677, 011-714-0678. Of course, also on social media, on Twitter at SABC Vital Science and Facebook, SABC Vital Science. The show continues after this ad break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vital Science. Now, 80% of South Africans consult traditional healers, and there are more than 200,000 traditional healers. Many South Africans still use traditional medicine for their primary healthcare needs, and this is because traditional healers or traditional healing practitioners are often more accessible, affordable, and of course familiar with the communities that they serve, with their cultural practices and beliefs that they'll bring into play. Our producer, Nompilo Kwala, spoke to a traditional healer about the work that they do in their community.
African traditional medicine has been used by African populations for the treatment of diseases long before advent of orthodox medicine and continues to carry the part of the burden of healthcare for majority of the population. The SABC visited a traditional healer in Tembisa to find out how a traditional consultation happens.
Sicala ngokuconsulta sicala ngamathambo siyahlola before ukuthi uthole imithi la ekhaya. Zikhona imbiza for ushukela and other illnesses that you can list, you can name. You know what normally I use? Here's my diagnosis system yam. So abiza ngamathambo. So ngamathambo ayangitshela ukuthi umuntu lo uphethwe yini uhlushwa yini. Kumele simsize ngani uzodinga umuthi onjani ukuthi ungene emzimbeni.
Dr. Nkanyezi talks to us about the importance of collaboration between traditional and modern doctors in managing healthcare. He also describes to us how he treats mental health.
If kuthi kunala ngibona ukuthi ngesintu kuyahluleka, then that's why I can refer them to Winnie Mandela Clinic. When it comes to mental health, because now in a certificate that I also provide counseling like Kaya, I've went training for that, and now kona kune imithi esihlanganisayo ukuthi sikhona ukumtreata loyo muntu.
There has been concern around the safety, efficacy, and quality of traditional medicine. Kanyezi shares with us how he prescribes his medicine.
Imithi enye ngithola lapha emakhemistini eFaraday in Johannesburg, eminye imithi nyangena esigangeni bese ngiyagubha. Umuntu ngiyamtshela ukuthi suke secala ngithi teaspoon ukuthi anga overdose, because more of something it's more dangerous, because le mithi enye inenhlavu ngaphakathi it's not really fine, so ungayenzeka ukuthi ingasafunction ngaphakathi komuntu isizwe, but then noma umuntu nje isamtshela ukuthi imithi yayigaya vele ukuthi ibe fine, then umuntu mesesuke seyisebenzisa samtshela ukuthi ethathe nje ngespoon. Into ngasho ukuthi abantu mele bangasabi ukusebenzisa imithi yesintu. Into esakhula bakhula ngabo okhokho bethu on ibhedlela ngicabanga kudala beyingekho, so they relied on natural herbs. And anyways ukuthi amapilisi akhandiwe aqala la esintwini.
Kigimotitso Labelo is a patient who makes use of traditional medicine. She talks to us about why she prefers traditional medicine over modern medicine.
Nna prefer pele ho tla mongakeng ya Sotho pele before nka ya sepetlele, because he ke tlile ka mo he ke fihla ke thoma ba thoma ba check pele or like okay fine ke tliste ke taba tsa semoya or ke tliste ke bolwetse na. He re hola kokwa ka na ile ngaka, but then na le hae ga nne around mo Gauteng. So e re le bana so na le ntelo re every time di go di tswalla every month end re ya hae, and yena as ngaka sometimes o gona bona dilo before na re di bona, so it should be like ai etla go bone, you understand. If you have a problem sometimes yena we handle before no ka bona.
The use of African traditional medicine by the public will persist and keep growing. Labelo shares how modern medicine has treated her in the past.
I would say yes, lungune iyasebenza nayo. I'm not going to say it doesn't work. Iyasebenza, but and abantu asifani. But for me, I would say yes, lungu iyasebenza, but it takes time.
Labelo talks to us about what people should look out for when consulting traditional healers.
If ugrele isangoma or prophet onamanga, now I should know value. Sometimes something is off about this person. It doesn't mean if law off, just move to the next one. Just move to the next until you tell a law right. And now right, then uhlale phansi naye yena uzokutshela everything, wakhuluma naye, build a relationship, uzokusiza ubone ukuthi waiting. These people nabo bayasiza.
After the break, we'll speak to Durban-based traditional healer and pastor Bongolethu Mzozo, who's popularly known as Dr. Kehle Lezi, about the role of traditional and modern medicine. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vital Science. Now, traditional African medicine is a holistic discipline involving the use of indigenous herbalism combined with aspects of African spirituality. Now, majority of these populations rely on this traditional medicine for their basic health needs, and in some cases, traditional medicine is the only healthcare service that is available, accessible, and of course, affordable to many people. Now, producer Nompilo Kwala visited a traditional medicine pharmacy to find out more about these pharmacies.
The SABC visited a traditional medicine pharmacy to learn about the products they offer.
The purpose yale shop le uthi abantu baphile kahle kahle. Kuna ezinye izifo lezi uthola ukuthi azilapheki kahle kahle ngesilungu. Sifuna izinto ezintu. So sizama ukuthi sisondela abantu la emadrobheni, sivule ishop njengalena ibe ngathi isilungu but siyazi ukuthi sisebenza wona lo msebenzi wabantu abadala.
Mkhulu Mahasha shares with us the challenges faced by many traditional medicine stores.
Ama-challenges ukuthi abantu abaningi njengoba ngisengishilo ukuthi kulamalanga abantu bafundekile, so bacabanga ngathi lezi zinto lezi sisithengisa lana zisebenza njenga lezi zesilungu. Abanye ba-expecta magic from zona, kanti no, nazo zine indlela umele usebenzise ngayo ulandelele izinto lezi sizokulayeza zona. Akusinyama kuphela lekhulayo nomoya sometimes uyagula. So la abantu bagulayo emoyeni basithola ngathi ba stranded and bane certain pressure ngathi I need the solution now. So ngathi kubona bathatha isikhathi sabo bahlangana abantu bafana nami nalaba ngisemisana nabo ukuthi sibachazele kahle kahle ukuthi lezi zinto lezi zihambe kanjani bakhona ukulandela iprocess.
Mahasha tells us how a relationship between modern and traditional medicine would have a great impact on communities.
If ibe khona mina bengathi ngaqala kula kuma mobile clinics ngihambe nabo mabahamba laba ba medical besilungu ngihambe nabo ngizama ukusiza ngoba zikhona into eziningi zihlupha kakhulu abantwana abancane nabantu abadala sebakhule kakhulu but zifuna into zesintu.
Apologies for the sound quality on that clip, but we will continue with the show. Now, it's the early days, of course, of the new year, and people are desperate for jobs and many other things, such as starting businesses, as well as healing from illnesses. Basically, people want a better year ahead. Now, many will be consulting mediums, traditional healers, pastors, and many other people. And today, we're discussing the role of traditional and modern medicine, and we're joined by Durban-based traditional healer and pastor, Bongolethu Mzozo, who's popularly known as Dr. Kehlelezi. People, of course, would want to see him when they're in need of prophecy, as well as consulting him for healing. Baba, siyabonga ukuthi ujoyine namhlanje.
Ndumani yatumezizweni isihlahla somdlebe nondela mzimba bheje mfazone empahla inhliziyo zamadoda ayibomvu nabasetete nabasenyumbani mkhonto kwazi igazi intaba ekhala amanzi dictionary indaba ayithithi umndeni ngibingelele mfowethu ngibingelele nababukeli bonke South Africa.
So masqale, and let's start with this idea of traditional healing. Now abantu that would live in South Africa, abantu abayafana nami nawe would in theory know what traditional healing is, but we explain kanjani kumuntu ongakazi wezwa ngayo?
A traditional healer.
Yes.
Right. Maskuluma a traditional healing. We're not talking about. There's a difference between magic and traditional healing. Traditional healing, it's not like a witchcraft. The witchcraft, umuntu othi mayibuka akudlela umona akwenze something bad. That is the witchcraft. But traditional healing, it's someone when you go and consult something that udokotela wesilungu cannot heal. Yena kwazi ukuthi ayipredict at you know what, you've got a problem, maybe uchitha amathambo phansi, at you've got a problem with your headache, but this headache, there is a medicine that I will give you. The medicine uzoyibhema, mawuyibhema, then bese akulapha. Ulapha kakhulu ngesintu, alaphe kakhulu maybe ngamathambo, alaphe ngezimbiza. Mangithi ngesintu, I cover everything. It can cut you, angakhatha, akusike, akufake imithi. Remember ukuthi imithi yinto nasemandulo. Those days eyayisetshenziswa to heal people. Kunezinto ongakwazi ukuthi uye esibhedlela. Let's say umuntu kufanele ayothwasa ungenwe abantu abadala. Ngeke ukwazi uya kudokotela, udokotela lo muntu lo ufuna ukuthwasa ngicela umnike injection. Obviously you'll have to end up going to a traditional healer or kwisangoma, yona traditional healer.
Now, you've mentioned a number of things that encompass traditional healing, that there are those that would basebenzisa amathambo to identify what problems you might have and make this diagnosis. There are those that will treat in terms of bagpe imiti and all these things that they'll mix up for you to use. And of course, you've spoken about many other things. So how do I know as umuntu ozizwa ukuthi, you know what, I don't feel okay, whether it's a physical problem or spiritual problem, I need to go consult someone. How do I know which person to go to that will sort out my problems?
Right. That is why maybe I think 4 years back or 3 years back, I decided to introduce Lento ka YouTube, to go on YouTube, because these days, remember, everyone, let's say if I meet you, which when I've got a problem, like you are asking now, the first thing that you will say, if they say, no, we know someone who is called Dr. Kehlelezi, the first thing that you will do, you will go on internet. Let me Google whether I will see Dr. Kehlelezi. And when you see Dr. Kehlelezi, the first thing that you will do is say, let me see what does he have done, when then, before, isn't abantu abasizile in that. And then besufuna ama testimonies ukuthi ngempela uKehlelezi lento uyayenza. By the time you get there, you won't just get there when kuphela. There are people who are sitting there. You will start talking nama clients ukuthi, guys, how do you know this guy? So injalo nje, you don't just go to a healer, even if you go umbone ku internet, but mawufika yenze research, even namakhelwane, just go there ngamasibomu nje ubuze kwamakhelwane uthi ngempela this guy, how long has he been doing yonke lento ayenzayo, ukuze ubone ukuthi ngempela lo muntu wenza into legit. I wouldn't recommend abantu abazothi, no, I saw ukuthi this guy is a traditional healer emgwaqweni. I wouldn't recommend into yasemgwaqweni, because
emgwaqweni, do you mean, those traditional healers that put up a sign and say, I'll fix all of your diseases, take my number, WhatsApp this number? Is that what you mean?
I would say so, even though they will feel offended. But I would say I wouldn't recommend ukuthi abantu baye endaweni ezinjalo. Go to a place where umuntu ukwakhe uhleli kwakhe, and mawufika, even if ehleli maybe go le flatini, but just investigation encane about that particular person, because especially othisha sebeshayeke kakhulu, whereby abantu kuthiwa buyisa imali yakho yonke pension fund. Then once you bring your money, they will double it. Ishiyelana othisha uthola ukuthi bayashayeka. So qala wenza investigation ngalo muntu seshe kakhulu, then once you are clear then uqale, because abanye labasemgwaqweni bazokuphuzisa imbiza. The next thing lembiza le maybe we overdose, we are shown, then what will you do? Sasa mawuthi uyahamba uyombheka akasekho. So better go la ahlala khona owazi ukuthi this guy has been here maybe for 5 years, for 3 years, for 2 years, angeke ngingamtholi kusasa, because abanye banenkinga uthola ukuthi umuntu ngiskemiwe imali yami, mangiskema imali yami angisazi ngizophuma ngibheke, but mawuye endaweni right ekwakhe, that's good.
Okay, so we've got a caller on the line right now who would like to ask a question. Good day, thank you for your call.
Hello, kunjani?
Hi, yes, we're listening. Ninjani baba?
Ngiyaphila kunjani?
Silalele baba, yebo.
Kumele ucela impilo eMpumalanga.
Yebo baba.
Ngicela ukubuza uDr. Khehlelezi, unjani doctor?
Ngiyaphila baba, kunjani?
Ngiyaphila nginomali. Nginenkinga la, yazi kusho ukuthi maqala unyaka ngingazama ukuapplyela imisebenzi, so bekuthembisa. So izinto zivesane zajika izolo. There's a certain power station ngimele ngikuyona, so basile ukuthi kune problem emafura offices mangithi ngibela la bengisebenza khona kule enye power station mathu nakhona ukugcwele, so like izinto zimile offices. There's a lot emele ngikwenze ekhaya because I'm the breadwinner actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, ngimphendula.
Of course.
Angazi noma mangimphendula ngingamtshela inkinga abhekane nayo right now, because
Consult
right, because according to my gift, I can tell him now, right? Inkinga yakho enkulu bhuti ne? Angazi noma uyangizwa. Inkinga yakho enkulu kumele uhambe uye ekhaya esayidini la koma wakho. Uma ngikhuluma nawe njengamanje, ngo-2007 bekumhla ka-13 May. Ngibona i-date, ngibona i-calendar ithi 2007, 13 May. Kukhona isilwane, imbuzi emhlophe eyagcina ilahlekile. Njengamanje mawuthi wenza umsebenzi, izinto zakho ziyahamba zingabi right kakhulu. Ngibona a document, kune document ekade kumele uyisayine wena ngo-November, end of November. You were supposed to sign a contract enemali enkulu, but lento yagcina ingenzekanga, yapostponwa. Kunento futhi eyideal okumele uyicomplete sometime next month njengoba sibheke kuFebruary. Kodwa izinto zakho zonke kuthi mase kufanele kufinalize ukufaka isignature, izinto zakho zime. That is why makufanele uthathe umakoti kuzoba nenkinga ngisho nakumakoti mawuthi wena uyamthatha. Angazi noma uyangi-understanda yini.
Ngiyakuzwa mkhulu.
So ukuze usizakale bhuti kufanele uzame ukuthola into you know lento okuthiwa umNazaretha omhlophe.
Ngiyawazi.
Ngicela ukuthi uhambe uye khona la ukusonta khona amaNazaretha uphathe imbuzi, because iyona lembuzi yalahleka eyasetshenzwe ekhaya kini. So kumele siyivale siyiwipe away. I won't be able to help you. The only person that will help you abantu abasonta amaNazaretheni. Angazi noma uyawazi amaNazarethi laba bagqoka the white ones. Uhambe uye khona uthenga imbuzi uyonikela ngayo bese uyakhuluma ucele yonke into oyifunayo. That is where your success is. Mina I will be wasting your time bhuti wami.
All right. Thank you very much for your call, and I guess you could take the advice that the doctor has given you there. So let's discuss something that's quite interesting here, is that, you know, when we speak about traditional healing, a lot of people will want to equate that to versus modern medicine, to say that, you know, people are going to traditional healers versus going to the hospital for their illnesses. But in the same breath with what we've just spoken about or just heard, is that you seem to encompass a world that exists outside of just the physical uyakula, une diabetes, une high blood, but to things that exist in the world or the realm of spirituality, to people's financial situations and things such as that. How does then someone differentiate or say that this person is my doctor, as a traditional healer, for finances, or this is someone that can sort out my illnesses? Are traditional healers people that sort out everything, this one person, or are they different people for different things?
Right. Good question. No mechanic, I will start here. Even the mechanic, there is no mechanic who can fix the whole car. When I'm saying the whole car, I'm talking about the engine, I'm talking about the gearbox, whatever. There is a mechanic who is good in fixing a gearbox, the engine, a tire in. Even traditional healers. There is no way that you can do everything. There is something that you need to be good at. Like, for example, Dr. Khehlelezi udume ngani ngegubhu. Lento esithema sikhuluma off air. What when I don't even know what is gubhu. Which means it falls under businesses. If someone says, "Gine business, but his business is not doing well. Mina, I'm good in that. I will take your business to another level. You have a shop, you shop yam, it's not performing, it's not doing anything. Mina ngithatha from la ngibeke kwenye level." So that is why there are specific people abagood. Omunye uthi ugood ekulapheni ikhanda, ugood ekulapheni stroke, ugood nabo bagood. Ungambona uthola udokotela athi mina I can do everything. Mawuthi wena uyakwazi ukwenza into yama enemies. I've got enemies. Athi hayi ngiyayenza le nto or uthi athi business athi ngiyayenza no. That's being selfish. So kufanele akwazi ukuthi there is a specific thing. Ma uthi you busy nale athi no, I can refer you to this specific person.
Well, thank you so much for joining namhlanje. I think a very interesting conversation. I really wish we had more time so we can get into it. That was traditional healer Bowelethu Mzozo, who's popularly known as Dr. Kehlelezi. After the break, we'll speak to Dr. Fundile Nyati, a family physician, about modern and traditional medicine. Stay with us. Welcome back to Vital Science. Now, there's a shortage of modern doctors in state hospitals and clinics in South Africa. However, traditional healers are in abundance in both urban and rural areas in South Africa. Now, despite this, traditional medicine is still undervalued and largely unrealized. Now, many cultures and societies turn traditional healers in all the problems that they may have that involve being ill and, of course, looking for treatment for many other things. Joining us is Dr. Fundile Nyati, a family physician and someone with an interest in traditional medicine with respect to research. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning to you and good morning to all the viewers.
Lovely. So let's, I think from Dr. Kehlelezi, we heard a different perspective that, this traditional healing world is so vast and so wide that us just pinpointing it to live in this world of just medicine has been, I think, very opaque of us to do. So let's contrast the two. So this is modern medicine and this is traditional medicine. In your practice as a family physician, how have the two come together? What have you realized about patients and what they actually do?
Well, I think what I realized, let's say in the first 10 years of practicing medicine, what I realized was that as a medical doctor, modern medical doctor, quite a number of people that you see, a significant percentage, especially if you practice in areas where there's a lot of black Africans, I'm saying black Africans because, there's colored, there's Indian, that's all black, but I'm focusing on this. So I found that quite a number of patients would come to see me, having gone to see a traditional healer before, or would see me at the same time they're seeing traditional healers. Or at times would drop my treatment and go and see traditional healers. And so it was a question in my mind, Guti, why? Why do they do this? Because I thought I was giving them 5-star service as a modern medical doctor who I thought was a very good doctor. So when an opportunity arose, for me to do research as part of my master's degree in family medicine, instead of choosing a conventional topic like studying about resistance of a germ to antibiotics or whatever, I chose to research this area of what is the prevalence of use of these people? What drives people to make use of these guys? Is it because maybe their services are cheap? Or is it because the people who consult there are illiterate? Or what? So I had lots of questions and I needed answers. And that's what I then, researched. And basically, what is important is that what I found was that one needs to understand what we call African worldview.
Okay.
Because if you understand the African worldview in terms of health and wellness, for people who are traditional Africans, then you will understand that, there is, let's say, God. They are the intermediaries who are the ancestors, and then obviously they are the patients. So the belief in an African worldview is that your health, your wellness, your fortunes, and all of that, these guys, the middlemen, they actually advocate for you to the guy on top, which is God, so if anything goes wrong health-wise, they want to know, the guys who are supposed to be advocating and protecting me, were they on a go slow or were they on a strike? So when you diagnose a guy that has got TB, for example, or cancer or whatever diagnosis, they will hear you as a doctor, but they want to know, the guys were supposed to be protecting me. Why did they not protect me? You know, so the question, why me, is a question that me and you as modern doctors are never able to say. You'll say, no,
Definitely.
most probably you were in some room, you know, somebody coughed and they jam, you know, explaining it in a biomedical model. But what you don't answer is why me? Why at that time? And that's why they would then go and see a traditional healer to explain, you know, by engaging with these middlemen called ancestors. Ukuthi, why, you know, were you angry about something? Is there some ritual that you want to do? And you cannot say that as a modern doctor, myself as well. So that's the reason. So if you understand that, then you will understand why there's dual consultation,
Yes.
or sometimes they start there before they come to you.
Now, the relationship between the two, traditional medicine and modern medicine, has
Yeah.
always been described as this feud, you know, this enemies coming
Yes.
together, you know, having this clash.
Yeah.
In reality, with what you've practiced, is
Yeah.
this a real enemy versus enemy type situation? Or are you finding that there's room for collaboration, and in collaboration, there's actually benefit to the patient?
Actually, that was what I wanted as an outcome of my study, to say this parallel healthcare system that has been there for, you know, a long time, you know, it cannot continue the way it was continuing. In fact, it's still continuing. What needs to happen? At the time I was doing this study, traditional medicine was outlawed, Health Act of 74, and also Prevention of Witchcraft Act of 1957. So I wanted to say, in the new South Africa now, because that was 97, 98 when I was doing the study, what should happen? And what I saw was that in other parts of the world, there's collaboration between the two. And so the issue was, in the South African context, what should happen? Luckily, in 2007, you know, a THP, Traditional Health Practitioner Act, was passed, which now recognizes traditional healers and also encourages collaboration. Between 2007 to now, there's supposed to be clear policies and regulations. There was even an interim THP council within the Department of Health, which was supposed to say, okay, everybody who's a THP, traditional health practitioner, must register, you know? And these are the ones who will be GPs, these are the ones who will be specialists, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that process, almost 15 years later, has not yet been done. And so collaboration is a problem, but also us as biomedical doctors or modern doctors, we obviously have got a lot of mistrust based on some of the things we've seen in the hospitals. You know, people presenting with liver failure, kidney problems, and other, you know, colon problems from having ingested stuff that is corrosive, you know. So we tend not to want to work with these guys. However, not all of them use herbs. So in the new act, the THP Act 22 of 2007, they recognize herbalists like the gentleman who just left. They recognize what we call diviners, izangoma. You know, they recognize also traditional birth attendants and also traditional surgeons, you know, for the circumcisions.
Okay.
So, but the operationalization of that act is stalling.
Yes.
And that's where I think we need to focus. Having said this, a number of our institutions now in South Africa are actually focusing on different aspects of traditional medicine.
Okay.
For example, you know, on the herbal side or herbalist side, University of Free State under, you know, Professor Matsabisa, they're doing great work in researching these herbs, looking at the active ingredients so that they can be able to look at issues like dosages and all of that, to remove toxicities and all of that.
For sure.
That's Free State. University of Natal, the psychiatry department, you know, is actually at the forefront of looking at, for example, first episode psychosis. You know, how much of people with first episode psychosis is as a result of, you know, spiritual issues, you know, ancestral calling
For
and
sure.
stuff like that. So it is important, therefore, that whilst the department must do what it does on the regulation side, as modern medical doctors, we open our hearts to learning. Because the DSM-5, I'm sure you are aware of the DSM-5, when it was launched in May 2013, it actually now has a new section, a section on what we call, just forgotten the name, but basically a list of, diagnosis from the transcultural side of, so such that as a modern doctor, you can have a diagnosis of major depression on this side, but you can cross-reference it on the transcultural side, in terms of it could be an ancestral calling. So which encourages doctors to understand the cultural context within which they practice, so that those situations where it could be from an African spiritual point of view, then appropriate referrals can be made.
For sure.
But it's still early days. But what's painful is that other people from outside of the continent, the US and Europe, are now taking a lead in researching
our
transcultural psychiatry stuff, for example. So we as South Africans, as Africans, we need to be proud of the indigenous knowledge that we have, be involved in researching it, publishing it, peer reviews and all of that, so that we can increase in the body, of knowledge, basically.
Now, generally, because you're a medical doctor, you advocate for, the science of it all, and that things need to be studied and assessed and things such as that, so that actual information and facts are put out. In terms of traditional healing, do you think that there is a role for people that believe in science, but still want to consult traditional healers? And in that role, what should be done by traditional healers to increase the uptake of, both worlds?
I think, as part of my study, once again, when I was doing background reading, it became clear that actually modern doctors tend to be reluctant to embrace new knowledge around this space. Yet, vice versa, the traditional healers, when given an opportunity to be taught, from a biomedical point, for example, that you can't use the same blade to make those incisions because there's HIV, for example. They would embrace those things. So I think a mind shift from us as modern medical doctors to, and collaborations in terms of ensuring that we research some of these things, was we can only get the respect of this space if it is well researched, which is why I'm happy that some of our universities are taking a lead, so that somebody doesn't come, like the Madagascar situation during COVID, and say, my mhlonyane will actually treat COVID. Put it through the processes. And so collaborations are important at research level, but also at patient care level. We normally talk about idiopathic, when we talk, we don't know the cause of this problem. Sometimes we discharge a patient because we don't know what more to do. What is wrong with then, saying maybe we are not empowered or skilled enough. Maybe we can refer.
For sure.
Obviously within reason. Because, you don't want stuff happening there and they come and blame you. But the point is, we don't have to be stumbling blocks if we feel there's nothing more we can do for the patient, So I think it is important, and so I'm happy the Department of Science and Innovation has got a unit now, an IKS, Indigenous Knowledge System unit under Dr. Ankh Chabalala, which is actually doing a lot of research, in some of these herbs, in collaboration with traditional healers, what they call knowledge, knowledge owners, to make sure that they modernize, and bring respectability, including to, packaging and how to sell these things, whether it is nutritional supplements, whether it is, dermatological preparations, or actually healing stuff.
Very interesting discussion, of course, that we're having today, talking about traditional medicine as well as modern medicine. That was Dr. Fundile Nyati, a family physician. After the break, we'll speak to Mr. Bruce Mbedezi, who is the Director of Traditional Medicine at the National Department of Health, about the role of traditional healers. Stay with us.
Okay.
Welcome back to Vital Signs. Now, for many years, traditional healers have been looked at in a very doubtful way by many of those who do not visit these practitioners for health-related matters. However, new laws implemented have left many employers wondering if they now need to accept sick notes from traditional healers. Joining us from the National Department of Health is the Director of Traditional Medicine, Mr. Bruce Mbetsi. Thank you, sir, for joining us. I think let's jump in with the very first question that's around traditional health practitioners and whether or not they're recognized as healthcare providers in South Africa.
Thank you very much for the invitation and good morning to your viewers at home. Traditional health practitioners are not only recognized in South Africa, they are recognized globally. But in South Africa, the recognition is confirmed by the existence of the legislation, which is the Traditional Health Practitioners Act number 22 of 2007, which was passed by Parliament. So the legislation provides for the establishment of the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council, which is meant to regulate the sector. So after the passing of the legislation, the department proceeded in appointing the registrar of the council in order to facilitate the full operational requirements of the council. So my answer to your question is yes, traditional health practice in South Africa is recognized.
So when you get the act, and the act says that they have been recognized not only in South Africa, but they are, I guess, recognized by WHO, and of course systems are saying that we should be able to incorporate these traditional healers in a form of basic primary health care, so that we're able to assist people at a much lower level. How do we keep record, or how is the department making sure that the traditional healers that are practicing and calling themselves practitioners are actually registered, or are people that, the everyday person on the street can walk into a facility and trust that their best intentions are looked after?
Yes, that was the main purpose of passing the legislation, because you can't mainstream the sector into the national health system without developing legislation. So the mandate of regulating traditional health practitioners rests with the council, which is provided for in the legislation. So the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council has been established, and the registrar has been appointed in order to facilitate registration and regulation of traditional health practitioners.
Mm-hmm. So how can one who wants to use traditional healthcare practitioners assess or check, or go to a place where they can find out if this person is registered and this is someone that they can trust?
Yes, unfortunately, the council that we're talking about in the office of the registrar of Mr. Mupena, who is the current registrar of the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council, is not yet fully operational. So they have not yet arrived at a stage where traditional health practitioners are registered. So it is very much a difficult or impossible for one to can say that will confirm or will check with the office of the registrar if a certain traditional health practitioner is registered with the council. But currently what is happening is that all, if not most of the traditional health practitioners given a certain form of identification by their respective associations, or even after graduating from their institutions, the training institutions, which is Wogovela, they do provide them with certain types of identification to show that they are fully trained as traditional health practitioners.
Mm-hmm. Now, after the training has happened and they're now practicing and they're starting to see patients as they come in and, they're starting to treat them as they should, what are the things that I think we need to highlight to patients about visiting healthcare practitioners that are performing traditional healthcare?
What I can say is that consulting to a traditional health practitioner is an individual choice. And then, as we have heard from previous speakers here, the onus to confirm or to check if a traditional health practitioner is authentic or is not a fly-by-night rests upon yourself as an individual. So currently, the department is busy trying to put in place institutional arrangements so that people can also double check with the office of the registrar whether a person has been registered with the council or not.
Now, we've heard from some of the guests today, and of course, I think from experience that a lot of people consult their traditional healers as the first step in order to establish what their problems might be. These may be physical, spiritual, or whatever it might be at that point in time. But you find that a lot of the time, they're not necessarily recognized from an employment perspective with respect to labor law. So if I'm sick, for instance, and I go see a traditional healer, am I able to get a sick note from this person who they've given me off 3 days off of work so that I can deal with the issues that I'm dealing with, that I can present to my employer?
That is the difficult one, but we all know that the sick notes are provided for by the Basic Condition of Employment Act, which is the act supervised by the Department of Labor. So one of the requirements for a sick note to qualify as a legal document is that a sick note should be issued by a practitioner who is registered with the regulator. So in this case, we are still in the process of trying to register traditional health practitioners in South Africa. So which leaves the sick note issued by the traditional health practitioners still wanting in some form of compliance with the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. But we also have situations where unions negotiate with employers to accept traditional health practitioners' sick notes, where employers will agree and accept sick notes from traditional health practitioners. And also on the same stage, we also have a landmark case in the Labour Appeal Court, where I think that case is called Kivitskroon Country Estate versus Muledi and others, where an employee produced a traditional healer's sick note. But in that case, I think employers or employees can still use the provision of that case in terms of South African law.
And so throughout our discussion, what you've said is, you're still in the process of establishing all of these, places and registries that traditional healers could set themselves up and register. In what sort of timeline should we expect this to, be finalized or be in the process of getting done so that, the everyday person is able to, for instance, log onto a website, type in their practitioner's name to see if this is someone that they can trust?
As I've indicated earlier, that the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council was appointed by Minister. But unfortunately, the term of that council expired, and Minister is currently in the process of trying to appoint a new Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council to facilitate that process. As of now, because the council has not yet been appointed, I can't put timeframes into when will the registration start, but that is very much high on the priority of issues that need to be dealt by the interim council when it is appointed.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, sir, and really discussing, I think, the important points that we need to get across to everyone that sees a traditional health practitioner. I think from the stats that we're given to you today, it's quite obvious that a lot of people go out and see traditional health practitioners and see them for a vast array of things and conditions that they want to consult for. So having information about these practitioners, knowing that this practitioner is able to do A, B, C, D, and that if this one doesn't sort out my issues, I'm able to go to another one, but also ensuring that the safety is something that lives across the board, that people are protected health-wise, but also in terms of other elements as well, spiritually, financially, and things such as that. Now, remember, if you want more information regarding regulation or registration of traditional health practitioners, you can contact the registrar of the Interim Traditional Health Practitioners Council. That's Mr. KP Mokoena, and the email address is kgereshi, that's kgereshi.mokoena, that's MOKWENA @health.gov.za. That should be on your screen right now. Make sure that you are seeing someone that is recognized to be a healer and is also available, and also someone that can have repercussions taken against them should something happen to you. You always want to play and be on the safe side. Well, we hope that we've covered and answered all the questions that you may have had on your mind about traditional medicine and how that comes into your world and how that could potentially affect you and, of course, make you a better person in terms of your health, your finances, or whatever else it is. But, of course, don't forget that if you do not get the help that you want from either your Western doctors or your traditional doctors, make sure that you go somewhere where you will be helped and continue to take the treatment that you need. From us here at the Vital Signs team, I'm Dr. Musa Mtombeni. We'll see you again soon.